any meaning, and then I'm going to give it to my brother Jerry. So sorry, any meaning to the date of the yesterday was the anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then today is the anniversary of the Bay of Pigs.
Well, I mean, I think it's worth noting. I mean, it's been the same crowd every time trying to bring us to some type of crisis, calamity moment. This is a season of the year that's been used that way repeatedly. Remember, Waco happened here, I think, on the 19th or 20th of April back at the time. You had the Oklahoma City bombing. There's certain meanings to dates within these various clubs that they like to do things with, some seasonal specificity that has ritual meaning to them. So, again, part of the thing with the numbers, I think people have to keep in mind, both sides use the numbers for their own meaning, and they use dates, and they use, holidays to convey messages and to get power and energy and all that. But at the end of the day, in reality, they can pick any date they want. They can pick any time they want and come up with some type of ritual significance. And so they can kind of make it fit whatever they want to do. And both sides are playing that game a little bit or a lot, and trying to own the high grounds of the numbers this season, or use it against them, against the other side. There's a bit of trolling going on, and gamesmanship. I'm less date or ritually driven than checkpoints. The main thing that's going on here in America right now is the numbers. This has always been a numbers game. Is enough of the population awake and aware of what's happening or happened, and on the right side of the equation? Election equals mega over corn. Election equals mega squared or cubed, quadrupled or quintupled. That's what I talked about in the book. And we have to have that magnification of our energy over the enemy, over these corn products, these at the farm, if you will, where field agents are trained. These farm products that you see out into these world positions. I've said it numerous times, but it bears repeating again. Somebody like Zuckerberg, this huge control operation of Facebook, did he actually create the Facebook program? No, it was a DARPA operation. And at the same time that the DARPA operation closed down, then Facebook started. Why? He was handed the keys to the car that was made with American taxpayer money, that then goes out and becomes this huge influence in the social conversation across America and around the world. It was a black hat operation. He's just a figurehead for something much, much bigger, much more nefarious. And you have that through all different areas of industry and banking and politics. There is a war for these key control and choke points of the masses, of the vast populations. And their concern is to manage us. Our numbers scare the crap out of them. If they can't control us and leverage us and manipulate us with the right players, the right finances, the right politics, even out into the religious realm, then they're afraid. They're much smaller numbers than we are. And so if we as the masses suddenly say exit stage right and we're all moving, it's a stampede, they can't possibly stop us. And I believe that that's this God moment, galvanizing event that's just somewhere in here right now, and they know it's coming, and that's why they're afraid. That's why they want to change and get, DC statehood, Puerto Rico statehood, pack the court with more judges, try to leverage and control and own us even more, even the vote, with more Dominion vote system manipulation out into 2022 and beyond. That's the threat to them. We wake up, we do it en masse, and say no more. And that's the women in Argentina all standing up at the same time and saying no more of our children going. That there's some threshold where there was just a couple mothers too many, a couple mothers that got together. They didn't go in there with guns, they didn't do anything else. Who's going to stop the mothers? It's Gandhi sitting down and saying, no, we're not going to serve foreign masters anymore. Do the American people understand and recognize that this was a globalist operation to steal their country, steal the bridge, steal the operation of the ship of state from the American people, and use it for these other people's interests? And if they en masse get that, the bridge won't be big enough to hold everybody showing up, taking their country back.
Thank you, sir. I think we got Jerry. There you go, brother.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
I thought my microphone wasn't working the whole time. Juan, I kept my mouth shut the entire time. Thank goodness. Listen, just a couple things. First of all, when Jen said about, I've had the blessing, because I've been listening to you, Juan, since the Field McConnell days. So just been able to, how you spoke in the book, about things that are happening now. I'll ask you a question in a minute about the water in Washington, but, and you had said throughout the whole time, Juan, that, it'd be a hand-wringing experience. When we came to Vegas, when we traveled, of all the hundreds and hundreds of people that I saw, Juan, there's only one person I bumped into that didn't have a mask on, and that was Jennifer. All the hundreds and hundreds of people on the plane, the airports I went through, and I bumped into Jen on the way to the hotel. And I bumped in, I saw a lady without a mask, and it was her. She's the only one that didn't have a mask on. So the reason I'm saying that, Juan, is because we've been told that you can't tell the people, you got to show the people. So I would argue that, even in the analogy would be, even with Christ, his disciples thought that, he's the King of Kings and he had done all these miracles, and they thought the cross was a defeat. So in America right now, let's say, people that are watching the movie thinks, because it's not going the way I thought, I never thought that it would go this way. So now, because we don't believe it, we assume that it's not going by plan because it's getting difficult. But you said it might get worse before it gets better, right? And I'm wondering if the plan's going exactly the way it's supposed to, because people have to be shown, and they have to see it themselves to believe that there was fraud, number one. If the president didn't hang on this long and stopped it before, we wouldn't know that fraud existed in the election. So check that off. That's a good one. Now that we see what a Democratic president would look like, well, we'll check that off. You know what I'm saying? So I'm arguing that, number one, the plan's going exactly the way it's kind of supposed to go, the way I see it, in that way, number one. And you've said that the whole time. Just because, and I believe too that you shouldn't have paid your bets if you paid them on April 1st, because it's quite obvious that the Florida's in control of the country if you're paying any attention anyways, but that's another story. And then the situation would be, and look in Washington now, what do we see? We see Mustang Medic reporting that there's water coming up from the thing. And you said that the Potomac was be going through the tunnels, and I'm just wondering if you could just touch on that for a second. And then, I was showing my brother-in-law your book, and I was showing him where it talked about the water in the thing, and he couldn't believe it, and you had talked about that a year ago. So anyways, that's just those two things, the water, and I believe the plan's going exactly the way it's supposed to go. It's when we watch a movie, the movie's not always hooray, hooray, hooray. You got a bad part of the movie, you got a difficult part, and then the ending, sometimes or most of the time, is a great ending. That's the way I see it.
Well, one of the things that I would say, again, I actually talked about diverting the Potomac back in 2015. I said if
Wow.
Trump decided to run for the presidency, that he, if he won, should get all of his contractor buddies together, get all the fencing they could muster from around the country, and then bring it to DC and do the same thing we did at Fallujah, surround it 3 layers deep with a chain link fence and concertina wire. And, and then I went into the rest of what I had to say, but I said that back in 2015.
Right.
It's,
wow.
And that's what happened.
That's what's happening right now. They're flooding it out now. They're flooding it. I'm like, I see Juan was right the whole time.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, and it is fun. But at the end of the day, again, I go back to it's a numbers game. Unless we get the numbers, we don't win. And so the question is, when's the pain enough that people decide they're just not going to put up with this anymore? Is it the forced vaccinations? Is it the internal passport? The whole world is being thrown against America to force us to get along, go along. And the momentum's going to be pretty hard to resist. And at what point do you decide you've reached that threshold where you're not going to go along anymore, that it's timed to act in some way? And how do we act? Is it, look at how threatened they were and how they want to misconstrue the American people showing up in Washington, D.C. And that, let me just add this, when the bird refuge thing happened out in Oregon, over half the people that were present inside the bird refuge were on the payroll of or under the control of, as informants, various state and federal agencies. So if over half the protesters are on somebody's payroll, how do you have an honest protest? Right. Those were agent provocateurs. And we can go to other events around the country where people have shown up to try to make their grievances known. And over and over and over again, we have these agent provocateurs that are embedded and embedding themselves into these protests, if you will, and trying to steer the protesters off in some bizarre direction to ultimately malign and damage their message. So then you go to DC, well, you had 1 million people show up, and then a handful, a few dozen of embedded protesters that are on somebody's payroll take this to a different level. They have a planned action, and then there's bizarre actions on the part of the park police and the security people there at the congressional building that open the doors and allow this to go on. There was some kind of collusion there, and so how do you actually have an honest protest? I would just say again that on the numbers, at some point you reach numbers where they don't have enough agent provocateurs to change the narrative. Just like those mothers showing up in Argentina, the numbers of people supporting those families that had lost family members became so great that you couldn't noise cancel their message. You couldn't counter it. You couldn't malign it or whatever, because the people weren't going to go along with it. We don't have to show up with guns. We don't have to storm any capitals. That's their game. We just have to show up and just say, no more. We're not going to go this way. We're not going to have internal passports with the vaccinations, et cetera. And then within our population, unfortunately, we've been MK Ultra enough that there's such a significant number that do believe they got to have that vaccine to be protected and like that. My attitude is, well, go ahead and get the vaccine. Don't force me to get it, though. And if you feel safe
Right.
getting it, well, go ahead and get it if you feel the need. But
Right.
don't force me or anybody else to have to do it. And if you got the vaccine, what are you afraid of me not getting the vaccine for? You're vaccinated. So
Right.
what's the problem? I don't have to go along with that.
Sure.
If you're vaccinated, you're vaccinated. What are you worried about?
Right.
No, they want to force us to comply because it's not one vaccination. It's 2 and 3 and 10 and 20. And it's a control thing. And now you have an internal passport, and that's a passport to the world. You know, I was going on a trip to Israel this fall. And unfortunately, now Israel's got this, you can't come there without the vaccine. And then the cruise that I was going to do, fortunately. And so I said, well, okay, I guess I'm not going then, because I'm not going to get the vaccine just to go there. They you know, going to make it so we don't have access to the world. Well, what's your threshold where you say no more? And I would just say that, okay, I'm going to focus on America, and if people want to get it, I'm not threatened by somebody that does get the vaccine. Let them go get the vaccine. If they feel that they want to do it, I'm not gonna, and I'm not putting my health at risk, and they don't know what the real long-term consequences are, so I'm not doing that. You know, I'd certainly advise anybody close to me not to do it, but you know, that's a choice. Don't force me to do that. And that's where I think people have to show up and say, you know, no. And you're really looking at whole states that are saying, no, we're not gonna go that route. You know, you got Florida that's opened up. Texas isn't far behind. They start forcing it hard enough, you're going to have states saying, you know, starting to push back. And Texas is one of those ones that's got real muscle behind those threats if they decide to do it. And the fight is to control the politics such. That's the fight in Texas right now, to pay into the right campaigns to get control of the politics to stop Texas from, you know, going that route. There's a real political fight. I don't think it'll get that long to play out. I think it's going to come to a head long before that. I don't think this can go that long, but you know, I can be proven wrong on that. You know, there's all of this stuff has long-term consequences. How soon does it come to a head? I think it comes to a head sooner than later.
Juan, just one more question. I want to ask you about President Trump. Juan said throughout the whole campaign and through his whole presidency, he kept saying fake news, fake news, fake news. I never realized how fake the news was until this election. And I was blessed enough to hear you at video live with on Rogue News with V. And you were the one on like the 5th of November that said that don't worry, we got this. And I've believed that ever since. And that helped me tremendously. But, you know, with Fox News even calling Arizona, which I was shocked because I used to watch. I haven't watched Hannity since then because I'm so disappointed he stayed there. And the media, and President Trump would say the media is the problem here. And the media is so together and against, you know, whatever, as we all see it. Do we see the media changing, Juan, maybe in the near future? Do we hope, you know, will that eventually change for the better, like with 107 Daily, et cetera, and, you know, going towards, you know, platforms that we can all speak on, and everybody on YouTube, just Dr. Wolverton, Chanel, that you did the video with, just sent out today that she got kicked off YouTube, and she's been building her thing for 15 years on YouTube. And I just got a text message. She got kicked off today, and how much it's affecting her. 15 years of her life, she gets kicked off YouTube, you know, and all that stuff. Do we see the media changing, Juan, in the short term?
Well, I don't think you're going to change their DNA. They're who they are, and they're too vested with their advertisers and like that. I think that you're going to see a new media now. There's a number of people that are putting together platforms, and I think that you know, Mike Lindell's working on stuff. We got a couple other places. The president's got stuff. We'll see who survives, who makes it. The one thing I would say to the people over 107 Daily, I've been holding off on doing posts, and I have some very fun stuff that you'll be seeing here in the near future. I appreciate that they've been long suffering while we've been a bit slow here. It has nothing to do with what we have for equipment and everything else. It has to do with just some permitting to do per specific things that we're doing. And because of COVID, it's been slow to get that access. But from an engineering side, from a technical side, we're in fantastic condition. And I've been holding until we reached one particular checkpoint, and we're pretty close on it, but we're not there yet on a technical access to the backbone fiber of the internet. And as soon as we cross that threshold, then I'll be doing quite a bit there, and I think you'll be pretty surprised. It's going to be, I think, amazing. But the people that have been there during this initial phase while we're in this beta phase, I thank every one of you. All of your work there and your staying present has helped us to work through a bunch of technical things. And even the monetizing and like that, we've got something that we think is going to be outstanding. Those people who are demonetized are going to be able to continue to do that over at the site. And we've got a bunch of the technical hurdles really, I think, conquered. Great crew over there working through all those issues. What we've done in a matter of months would have taken, by many estimates, several years to do anywhere else. And I think we're pretty close. But talk's cheap. Give it just a smidge longer, and as we get past these next couple of choke points, and you're going to have the fastest, smoothest running site, I think, anywhere on the planet, and it's going to be amazing. So I appreciate those people over there. We'll have something special for those ones that were there from the outset, and make it worth their while that they got to this point with us. So, and by the way, too, just the second edition of the book is being printed, I think, in about 3 or 4 days. They start the printing. It'll take about 8 or 10 days before it's completed. And it's got some beautiful changes to it. It's going to be spectacular. So if you come back to the site over at 𝐉𝐔𝐀𝐍.com, Kid by the Side of the Road, probably about Monday night or Tuesday, there's going to be a special offer for people that are buying that second edition, and it'll be a lot of fun. And
that's great.
There's we held back a bunch of the first edition, and I think we've got most of the problems taken care of. There was quite a bit that we haven't gotten an admission on, but there was some mischief that took place in some of the early mailings, and up through the Christmas season, just beyond that, where entire days disappeared somewhere in the postal system. And I think we've addressed all those. It was fairly tiresome and annoying, but I've held back editions to make sure I get everybody that order first edition their first edition. But for example, I got, we've complained quite a few times. I got people report that they got books that they ordered back in November suddenly showed up on their doorstep the other day in the postal system. Well, what freaking, shelf were they hidden on,
Right.
And we sent out second mailings to a huge portion that was very costly. This, and let me just add this too, just because I'm on it. The second edition will be a bit more expensive, but we're going to complete tracking thing. And when they place their order and they get it, they get a postal service tracking number with every order. So there's not going to be any more of this mischief that occurred. And unfortunately, it's going to cost a little more, but it's just the way it is. And but there'll be some fun stuff over there, and I am going to be. I signed a bunch of copies when I was at the printer the other day for something special, and so those will be. We'll talk about that there in the site probably late in the week or something, but that'll just be for some of the larger orders like that. And so there's some fun stuff there. The 107 Daily stuff is coming, and I appreciate everybody that's out there working with us more than I can say. I mean, I appreciate all you guys a lot. Try and do it here for, your audience, this crowd that's, working hard to save the country. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, sir, we ask you. We appreciate everything you do for all of us. I mean, I get comments, as I said the other day, and I know Jen does and Prime does, that people all over the world just love to hear your voice, your confidence, your wisdom, the time that you give us all these times. I'm telling you, we get messages from all over the world saying, "Where's Juan? Can Juan speak with us? Can he?" Because they really believe you, they trust you, and you make a big difference in all of our lives. You really and the time you put, the book is incredible. Anybody that received the book, 5-star. I mean, the second, unbelievable. So we know that 107 Daily, anything you touch, Juan, is nothing but the best. And, we expect and we trust that 107 Daily will be just like that as the book. And we really appreciate all you've done for us and everybody around the world, actually, Juan.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be possible except that people, it's really more of a consolidation. We're dealing with a whole group of patriots that we're just showing up at the same place, and having a rallying point is useful, but it's actually about the patriots showing up. It's not so much just an individual. It's not about me. It's about that we're like-minded people. We're God-minded people. We have a particular view of the world, and so having a common beachhead to show up at and from which to work to go do the work to save the world, that's the important thing. And I'm very you guys are all my heroes. There was a lot of time. I want you to stop and think about this. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of guys. I knew guys all the way back into the late 60s, early 70s, 80s, that were all patriots, and they saw things that we see today more clearly. They saw them way off in the distance, and they were trying to fight against them. The public wasn't showing up in mass, and we missed some moments when we should have been able to get things back under control. We're at a hinge point in history, and the difference is we are a more coherent group, and that's why they're doing all of the controls through the social media, through the finances, through the COVID, everything else. We're at a moment in history where they know that it's win or lose. This is Casino Royale for planet Earth, and everybody's going all in. And this group that has coalesced around people like you, Prime and Jen, you, Jerry, that group is about saving the world, and they have a common mindset that wasn't available in numbers. Maybe we didn't have the internet in the same way. We didn't have the ability to communicate. That's a real threat. And so you're all my heroes because you're all the ones that are showing up at the most critical moment in our lifetime to be counted and to get in this war and to, save the world. And the guys that went before us, that they wished that the people would show up in this way, and a lot of them did, but for whatever technical reason, etc., they didn't quite make it. It just wasn't the right moment. Well, now it is, and you're here,
Amen.
and we're going
Amen.
to make it happen. That's the way I see it. And so this is a generation of heroes. We're going to win this day, come hell or high water. And that's the way I see it. So, you know, it's just like right now I'm looking out here, it's the calm before the storm. I think that might be a very accurate portrayal. And by the way, just because I think it, you know, just occurred to me, I don't want people to get strained over it. You can see I've got a North Carolina Confederate flag out here on the porch. And a lot of people don't know this, and it's been maligned in this current moment history. You know, the largest slave owner in I believe it was South Carolina, not North, but the largest slave owner was black coming into the Civil War. A lot of the issues related to the Civil War back then, while slavery was clearly a part of it, it was also about states' rights. And there's you know, a lot of these guys down here, good friends, they understand some of these issues about this conflict that occurred in America over states' rights versus federal rights. And, you know, we're kind of having that conversation here in America right now. This is about who's going to run the American people. Is it more spread out, localized, where the people have more control over those people running the country, or is it more centralized where they're easily bought off, controlled, manipulated, puppeteered, even by people outside the America or you know, from a business side, etc. That's the conversation we're having right now, and I would contend that before this is all over, it's going to have to go back to more localized control, states' rights issues, and that's the real threat that is Washington and the people in Washington are afraid of, that the American people are going to show up and say, enough of this federalization, centralization. We're going to change directions as a country. That's what they're really afraid of. So I know it's been a long show. I didn't mean to take so long, and I'm kind of relaxed and enjoying the weather, but might not be the same for you guys. I don't want people thinking I just want to be long-winded. I think we covered most of it, but.
Well, you know what, Juan, I wanted to ask you something to dovetail onto I was taking some notes when you mentioned the various things that are coming to a critical, you know,
Sure.
A crisis moment. Can you please address and characterize the humanitarian crisis at our southern border, and, you know, where you see this resolving and how this might work into this cataclysmic moment that you referenced?
Well, look at Texas again. You know, I mentioned that Texas is could actually break away if they wanted to. They have a lot of rights that some other states did not retain for themselves. They even have their own gold supply to create a currency and retain that right. But this flooding of Texas with these migrants from outside the country changes the demographics. Even the support workers coming in to have to live in Texas to support that and manipulate that. You know, one of the places that I was just in up in Minnesota, they brought all of these people out of Africa, brought them over, and then they gave them citizenship without having gone through the normal citizenship process, gave them passports, gave them money. They were flying them in by the plane loads over and over. And so it changed the congressional makeup and the federal positions because of this vote stuff that was going on there. They're seeking to do that, you know, in conservative areas. You know, Minnesota, that was heart of the Bible Belt. I was just with a friend of mine whose dad was one of the great radio preachers of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And that region has been turned on its ear. Even their Bible camps that they had out into northern Wisconsin, they had 5 Bible camps there in a particular region, northern Wisconsin, that, for the churches, the youth groups out of Minnesota, out of the Twin Cities, come out there every year. But it's been decimated to the point where 2 of the camps closed down. One of them is now allowing that part of the summer goes to Muslims that come in to have their camps at, one of the Christian church camps aligned with a particular church group. And then they want to do firearms training there at the Christian camp, but they're going to let the Muslims do it. I mean, give me a break. That's diluting and diverting. That was a planned attack on the Christian community in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. You had huge revivals that went on there in the late 60s, early 70s. I would contend that's like in the land of, in Canaan land, which was promised to Abraham and his seed. The reality is that the devil planted the Canaanites there and reinforced them during the period that the Israelites were out in Egypt as a blocking maneuver, because the devil himself knew that God had promised Abraham that region for an inheritance for his offspring. And then that was a blocking maneuver against the children of Abraham, against their inheritance. This moving of this Muslim population into Minnesota, into the Twin Cities area, and this build out of that population is an attack on the Christian community there. And what started, in Minneapolis, St. Paul region, now you're out into northern Minnesota, and even at the periphery where they thought they had a outpost of freedom, away from that city area, you're 100 miles away, and yet now the invasion is being completed, even taking these refuges and switching them over to this control. You can look the other way only so long, and then next thing you know, you're overrun. That's the situation at the border down there in Texas. The numbers, it's cumulatively, it's building. And just like the bee stings that I talked about at the beginning of the broadcast here, there's a certain threshold where you can't take anymore. And all of a sudden, even just another bee sting might trigger a reaction, going to anaphylactic shock, and you die. What's that moment for America? How many more can we take before we're no longer America, because we've been so diluted that we've lost our own internal culture? The people that are coming here are changing us. We're not changing them. People want to come here and become American. America is a mindset. It's an idea. It's not just a place. It's a way of thinking. And when you come here and you don't have to become American, learn America. It's the only place, Ronald Reagan said it, and others before. America is the only place in the world you can go to and become an American, become that people. You can go to Germany and be from other places. You can get German citizenship. That doesn't make you German, if you will, or France or other things. But America's, we're all these different things. Literally my closest friend, my brother, is Muslim, and we have beautiful conversations, important conversations. One of the things I would say there is that Sadat in Egypt, virtually unknown anywhere in the world. Why was he killed by Muslim Brotherhood? Because he said a prayer of faith with Harold Bradison, my friend, in Christ as the Messiah. savior. And here's this Muslim. Don't think for a second. See, the real danger, even there, I was telling friends who have a Christian ministry there in Minnesota and northern Wisconsin just the other day, what the devil's afraid of is that while these people have been brought here and they've been planted in America to take us over, like the devil planting all of his people there in Canaan land, we're going to go and do God's work. And many of those people are going to turn and be saved. And then they're going to go back to wherever they came from and bring the gospel with them.
Amen.
We're not threatened by them. The devil's afraid that they'll see the truth too and turn around, just as Sadat did and others around him. So we're not in a hunkered down, go hide, dig the hole deeper mode. We're in the go on the attack mode. We're not just going to save America. We're going to join with people that have been sent here on a mission with God's help, with divine assistance, divine light. We're going to preach the gospel, and then we're going to help them to go out and save the rest of the world also. That's our mission.
Amen.
And that's this Esther moment, this reversal moment. Even the situation in Iran, that's what President Trump did. He didn't go in there and bomb Iran. He said one Iranian life is worth more than $30 million, and he didn't do the attack that all the neocons wanted him to do. This bringing the world to the brink of some next crisis may not have the outcome these people think, because I believe God's going to have his hand. And that's where, either you believe in prayer and that prayer changes things, or you don't. Christ, last thing I'll say to you, Christ would send the apostles ahead to various cities by twos, and they would preach the gospel, and they'd do miraculous things in the name of Christ. And then Christ would come to the city and people would be thronging around wanting to hear more, etc., the good news. There was a certain city that Christ went to, and after having done all these incredible miracles, all these cities and the renown that had gone on, but in this one city, it said that Christ, the Son of God, could do no great work there because of their lack of faith. That, Abraham, I talked about that with the Canaan land. Abraham was called the father of the faithful, who God promised him to have offspring that would be as many as the sand of the seashore, if you could number them, and as many as the stars in the heaven, if you could number them. And yet he was fatherless at 90 years old, and didn't have his kids. And so here he is, an old man, and God had been promising it to him since he was a young kid, went through the whole region there. And yet he still believed God, and ultimately did have kids. And that's, the Jewish nation now today. But faith was the key. If you don't believe that prayer changes things, then you're probably not much help to us. You're not much help to yourself. Where's your faith? You're whining and moaning and stressed out about what's going to happen in the country, etc. Well, then pray. Either God's in this with us, or nothing else matters anyway. Either God's here going to reverse what's happened, God's going to act on behalf of the people. That's what is the threat from January 5th and 6th. God's people showed up and they prayed, and the devil and all the demons and all the democrats are scared to death that the hand of God may show up, handwriting on the wall moment, and change everything in an instant.
Amen.
They can't block God, and the devil himself knows it. And that's what I'd be praying for. Somewhere in here, drama's about to happen, and God's going to be the author.
That sounds like a plan to me. I love it.
That's a good plan. Thank you so much. And you know what, Juan, I want to thank you for addressing that flag, because you already anticipate how people are so triggered. And I want to just address people, especially from the so-called Black community. We've been taught to be triggered over so many things. And a lot of us are learning just what you said. We have not been taught correct history. And a lot of the symbology that we get triggered by is because we were programmed and conditioned to be triggered by it. So I want to address anybody that would be from the Black community that listens to this and watches this, to really learn history, be open to learning real, true history. Amen. Especially in the light of the fact that we are learning that we've been bamboozled. You look at what's happening with the whole Patrice 𝐬 the founder of BLM. She lives in 4 mansions in white neighborhoods. And meanwhile, the so-called Black community, which I think is a mindset, it doesn't change. So I really want to speak to the people that, you know, need to hear that message, to be open to learning and to be less triggered and think and thoughtful, because no one has a corner on the market of being oppressed. Okay. The only people, and I say this all the time in my live streams, the only group of people that are enslaved to a level that nobody can even compare are these children being trafficked, are the humans that are being trafficked in modern day slavery. So I want everybody to really get that into your spirit, and don't feel like you have a chip on your shoulder and you've won the oppression Olympics. These children are the slaves of the modern world, and we need to be focused, united on that issue for slavery to be abolished, because it hasn't been. So I just want to say thank you for addressing that flag. When I first saw it, I had no problem with it, but I knew somebody might get triggered. So thank you for addressing that. Okay.
Well, and the one thing I will say too, you know, the dates on this particular one, they're May 20th of 1775 and April 12th of 1776. And that's the Concord and Halifax Accords declaring independence from British rule for commerce and like that, secession. These were people that led the way towards an independent America. And, you know, you can have people that can steal your symbology and make it, you know, twist it to say things that you never meant or intended. And certainly that there's no doubt that there's groups that have maligned and twisted the narrative on the Confederate flag to mean things that are nefarious and evil. And, you know, so we fully recognize that. Then again, you know, I remember back in the 70s and 80s, you had the Dukes of Hazzard with a Confederate flag in their car. Nobody was screaming bloody murder necessarily then. You know, because they understood it kind of tended to mean something else. It had to do with an independent spirit. There's no question, though, that there's room for discussion there. And I wouldn't want to, a bruised reed I will not break. I understand that there's people where that is, look, the American flag. Some of the places that we've gone as a country, where our military's gone, where our State Department has gone, some of the action's gone. I understand why the people would see the American flag in a very negative light because of some of the things that have been done in our name as a country. You know, there is some meaning behind each one of these things, and we need to, you know, own the day, own the history, and even taking down the monuments. A lot of those monuments, even where there may be things that aren't things we necessarily want to agree with, those are markers in history. You're going to deny the history took place. They want to tear down these things that help us to remember who we are as a people and what's going on. No, I don't think we want to do that. We need to protect our monuments. That's one of the most crucial things we as a people have to do, because if you take down the history, you don't have those lessons. There's things that we don't want to repeat and we need to learn from. Don't take down our history. That's what makes us understand who we are as Americans. And
I just wanted to say this too, because just to piggyback on what Jen was saying, the fact that there was a great karmic lesson in the history of America in terms of slavery. It taught us what not to do. It wasn't the destiny of America. That's why it didn't remain. And that there were Black and white folk who were united in the abolishing of slavery and in the civil rights movement. That needs to be noted. People need to know that. And I think that needs to be really carved out of history where people can really see that, kind of like in a snapshot, that, history was not, these times were not just Black people by themselves. It was Black people who were united with white people in the abolishing of slavery and in the civil rights movement. People need to know that. That's just not a new idea.
Well, there was a lot of white slaves too. That's another thing that people don't understand. It wasn't just Black slaves, there was white slaves. So it wasn't just a Black issue. And, today we have children that are being enslaved. We have adults that are being enslaved, especially in the sex trafficking, of course, which is the movie Sound of Freedom that's so critical. So this is a conversation that we need to have still. So anyway, there's a little R-22 going up the coast here, helicopter for people that know what's going on there. Something that can fly. So I learned how to do my helicopters in an R-22. And actually, I take it back, it was an R-44. It's a 4-seater. So anyway, all right, folks, I should
thank you, sir.
Love you,
get
sir.
on to other stuff I got going here, and I've got someone that's waiting for me now. And in fact, you don't want to keep senators waiting. They don't take kindly to that. But
thank you for your time, sir.
Super. And plus, it's still sunny out. I got the top down on the hot rod, and I want to go take a cruise into town and have some fun, have a nice dinner tonight. I hope everybody here takes a deep breath, enjoys a beautiful weekend. Somewhere in here, you're going to see some storm clouds. Take a deep breath, hold it together. We're going to make it. We got this. And I'm glad all of your people are here. You're all my heroes.
Thank you, sir. You are our hero.
God bless, Juan. Thank you, Juan. God bless. Bye, Jen.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Love you, Prime.
Love you guys.
Juan, thank
you.
Hey guys, let's link up after this.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Juan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Juan. Enjoy your dinner.
All right. Thanks, folks.
Take care, Juan. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. That was awesome. Thank you.
He logged off. I stopped recording.
Okay, I'll stop. Oh, that's right.